Welcome back to the channel Valuable Rare Coins, where we dive deep into the world of rare and valuable coins that might just be hiding in your pocket change or coin jar. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most fascinating modern coins of the United States of America, the Kennedy half-dollar from the year 2000. Now, you might be thinking, the year 2000 doesn't sound like it was all that long ago, so how could a coin from such a recent time hold any real value? Well, stick with me until the very end because what I'm about to share will truly surprise you, and when I reveal the potential value of one very special Kennedy half-dollar, it will leave you speechless. Let's start by taking a step back and appreciating the legacy of the Kennedy half-dollar itself. First introduced in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the coin was created as both a tribute and a way for the American people to honor one of their most beloved leaders. The design was crafted with urgency, yet also with great care. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts designed the portrait of Kennedy that graces the obverse side, capturing his strength, charm, and the aura of hope he represented to the nation. Over the decades, the Kennedy half-dollar became more than just a piece of circulating currency. It became a symbol, a collector's item, and a coin that carried with it emotional significance tied to American history. Fast forward to the year 2000. By this time, the Kennedy half-dollar was no longer widely used in everyday transactions. Most Americans rarely saw them in circulation, and many half-dollars were struck primarily for collectors rather than for mass circulation. This makes the year 2000 Kennedy half-dollar especially interesting. Though millions were produced, relatively few ever made their way into regular use. Instead, many were packaged into mint sets or collector rolls, preserved directly from the U.S. Mint. Now, let's talk about the design details of the year 2000 Kennedy half-dollar, because while it carries the familiar imagery, there's something about this coin that continues to capture attention. On the obverse, you see the strong, dignified profile of John F. Kennedy. The word Liberty arcs across the top, "In God We Trust" is inscribed proudly, and below the portrait sits the year 2000. The design remains timeless, elegant, and symbolic of American values. Flip the coin over, and you are greeted by the presidential seal, an eagle with a shield, clutching an olive branch and arrows, encircled by stars and the words United States of America and half-dollar. This imagery connects directly to the office of the presidency and the idea of leadership and strength, making the coin resonate even more powerfully with collectors. But what makes the 2000 Kennedy half-dollar particularly fascinating isn't just the design, it's the rarity of certain conditions, mint marks, and unique varieties. The year 2000 saw half-dollars struck at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, and while both versions are common in circulated condition, finding pristine examples, especially ones graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, is where the excitement truly begins. A coin that has never been touched by circulation, showing no signs of wear, and boasting sharp strikes with brilliant luster, can be worth far more than its face value. Collectors also pay attention to proof versions of this coin. Proof Kennedy half-dollars from the year 2000 were struck at the San Francisco Mint with a mirrored finish and frosted details, creating a stunning contrast that makes them highly desirable. Even among proof coins, certain deep cameo examples, where the frosted devices stand out dramatically against the mirror-like fields, can command strong premiums in the marketplace. And then we come to the truly special part: errors and varieties. Like with many coins, the year 2000 Kennedy half-dollar has its share of fascinating errors. These might include double dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, or other unusual anomalies that slipped through the minting process. Error coins are beloved by collectors because they are unique. No two are exactly alike, and they often fetch incredible prices when they surface at auctions. A double die, for example, where the design elements appear doubled, can take an ordinary coin and multiply its value many times over. So, what does all of this mean for you? It means that if you happen to come across a Kennedy half-dollar from the year 2000, you shouldn't just glance at it and toss it aside. Instead, you should examine it closely. Look for that mint mark, check the condition, and pay attention to details that might indicate an error or variation. Coins that are ordinary and worn might only be worth face value, but coins that are pristine, rare, or feature unusual minting characteristics can command serious money in the world of collectors. now comes the exciting part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While most 2000 Kennedy half dollars are worth a modest premium over face value, certain exceptional examples have shocked the numismatic world. When preserved in the highest possible grade, or when they feature dramatic mint errors, these coins have fetched staggering amounts at auctions. And believe it or not, one very special 2000 Kennedy half dollar has been valued as high as $235,000, yes, that's right, $235,000 for a coin that, at face value, is only worth 50 cents. So the next time you come across a Kennedy half dollar from the year 2000, don't underestimate it. Examine it carefully, because you never know what kind of treasure you might be holding in your hands. It could be worth only a few cents over face value, or it could be worth a life-changing fortune. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most beloved and historically significant coins ever produced in the United States, the Kennedy half dollar with the dual date 1776 to 1976. Now, at first glance, you might think this is just another commemorative coin for America's bicentennial celebration, but believe me, this coin holds secrets, stories, and potentially life-changing value. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video I'm going to reveal just how much one very special example of this coin has sold for, and the number is going to blow your mind. Let's begin by stepping back into history. The year 1976 was a monumental milestone for the United States of America. It marked 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Across the country, celebrations were planned, parades were organized, fireworks were launched, and of course, the U.S. Mint wanted to be part of this grand event. So they decided to honor the bicentennial with special coin designs. Not just one, but 3 coins were chosen to carry unique reverse designs to celebrate America's 200th birthday: the quarter, the half dollar, and the dollar. These coins were unlike anything Americans had seen in everyday change, and even today they remain iconic reminders of that patriotic celebration. The Kennedy half dollar, which already carried a strong emotional legacy because it honored the late President John F. Kennedy, received a special commemorative touch. On the obverse, the portrait of Kennedy remained the same, his strong profile facing left, the word liberty encircling the top, "In God We Trust" proudly split on either side of his neck, and then beneath him the special dual date reading 1776 to 1976. This instantly marked the coin as part of the celebration. But what makes the bicentennial half dollar stand out is the reverse. Instead of the usual presidential seal with the eagle, the Mint introduced a brand new design created by Seth G. Huntington. It featured Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the very building where America's independence was declared. Above it are the words United States of America, and below half dollar, with the phrase 200 years of freedom to capture the spirit of the anniversary. Now, most people who lived during the 1970s remember seeing these coins in circulation. They were struck in huge numbers, millions upon millions rolled off the presses at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. There were also proof and special collector versions struck in San Francisco, including 40% silver issues that were sold in sets. Because of this, many people assume these coins aren't rare. And in ordinary circulated condition, that's true, you can often find them for little more than their face value. But as with so many coins, the devil is in the details. What truly separates an ordinary bicentennial Kennedy half dollar from one worth real money is the condition, the mint variety, and in some cases, rare errors. Collectors are always hunting for pristine examples graded at the very highest levels by professional services such as PCGS or NGC. A coin with sharp strikes, flawless surfaces, brilliant luster, and no signs of wear is a prize to any serious collector. While the majority of these coins were handled in everyday commerce, a few survived untouched in original rolls, bags, or collector sets, and those lucky survivors can command serious premiums. Proof versions add another layer of desirability. Proof bicentennial half dollars from San Francisco, especially those with deep cameo contrast, where Kennedy's portrait and Independence Hall are frosted and stand out dramatically against the mirrored background, are especially stunning. Collectors will pay top dollar for examples that grade as perfect. Then we come to error coins, and this is where things can get very exciting. Errors are accidental misstrikes or flaws that occur during the minting process. On the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar, errors might include double strikes, off-center strikes, missing elements, planchet flaws, or even unusual die varieties. Some of these errors are unique, meaning no two are exactly alike, and when they surface at auctions, they can spark bidding wars among collectors eager to own something truly one-of-a-kind. So if you're wondering what to do when you find a bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar, the answer is simple: look closely. Does it shine with mint luster? Is it free from scratches and wear? Does it have a mint mark like S for San Francisco, which indicates it might be a silver issue or proof coin? Could there be a doubling in the date or lettering, or a strike that looks off? Every tiny detail can mean the difference between a 50-cent piece and a collector's dream coin. Now, let's talk about collector demand, because this is another key factor. The Kennedy half-dollar series has always been immensely popular. From the moment it was introduced in 1964, Americans hoarded them as a tribute to the fallen president. That popularity has never faded, and bicentennial coins, with their special designs, attract not only Kennedy collectors but also those who love American history, patriotic symbols, and commemoratives. This cross-appeal means that demand for high-quality examples will always be strong, and as demand grows, so too does value. And now, we come to the moment you've been waiting for. While most bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars are worth modest amounts, there are a few examples that are true treasures. Among the rarest of the rare, when preserved in the highest grade imaginable or when they feature spectacular minting errors, these coins have reached jaw-dropping levels at auction. And one such extraordinary Kennedy half-dollar from the Bicentennial series has been valued at an astonishing $384,000. Yes, you heard that right, $384,000 for a single half-dollar that originally had a face value of just 50 cents. Think about that for a moment. A coin that most people spent casually at a store or dropped into a jar of change could, in the right circumstances, be worth nearly $400,000. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the possibility that hidden treasures are out there, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So the next time you come across a 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar, don't dismiss it as just another old coin. Examine it carefully, pay attention to the condition, the mint mark, and even the tiniest details. Because you never know, you might just be holding a fortune in your hands. Today, we're going to take a long look at one of the most iconic modern coins ever struck, the Kennedy half-dollar from the year 1973. At first glance, you might think a coin from the 1970s is too recent to be rare or valuable, but you're about to discover that this is no ordinary half-dollar. There are details about this coin's history, its design, its minting process, and even its collector appeal that could turn a simple 50-cent piece into a small fortune. Stay tuned until the end, because the true value of one extraordinary Kennedy half-dollar from 1973 is going to leave you stunned. Let's begin with the history behind this legendary coin. The Kennedy half-dollar was first issued in 1964, created in the aftermath of President John F. Kennedy's assassination in November 1963. Americans were devastated by the loss, and the decision to honor Kennedy on the half-dollar was made quickly, replacing the Franklin half-dollar that had only been in circulation for a short time. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts designed the obverse portrait of Kennedy, while Frank Gasparo created the reverse with the presidential seal. The coin was released to massive public demand, and right away people began saving them as keepsakes. This tradition carried on for decades, making the Kennedy half-dollar not only a piece of currency but also a symbol of American history and memory. By the year 1973, the coin had already been in production for nearly a decade. However, something very unusual happened that year that sets these coins apart from others in the series. Unlike other half-dollars of the early 1970s, the Kennedy half-dollar dated 1973 was not released into general circulation in large numbers. Instead, the coins were struck primarily for mint sets and proof sets, which means far fewer were made available for everyday use. Millions of people never even saw a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar in their change, which makes them more difficult to find today in top condition. Now let's take a closer look at the design details. On the obverse side of the coin, you see the classic, bold profile of John F. Kennedy, his hair finely detailed, his gaze confident, his presence timeless. Above him arcs the word liberty, and split across the portrait are the words "In God We Trust," with the date 1973 beneath. On the reverse, you find the presidential coat of arms, the majestic eagle with its shield, olive branch, and arrows, encircled by 50 stars, a symbol of the nation's power, unity, and ideals. Together, these designs have made the Kennedy half-dollar one of the most recognized and collected modern coins in U.S. history, but what makes the 1973 issue especially intriguing is the rarity of certain mint marks and the incredible value potential of high-grade coins. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar was struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with AD, and San Francisco with an S for proof issues. The Philadelphia and Denver coins are tough to find in uncirculated condition, while the San Francisco proofs, especially those with deep cameo contrast, are highly sought after by collectors. Deep cameo means that the frosted devices of Kennedy and the eagle stand out dramatically against the dark, mirrored fields of the coin, creating a striking effect that makes them especially desirable. Beyond condition and mint mark, we also have to talk about errors. Minting errors are like hidden treasures, and the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar is no exception. Error coins can include double strikes, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, or doubled dies. Some errors are so dramatic that they transform an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind collectible worth thousands of dollars. Collectors go wild for these error coins, and every time one surfaces, it makes headlines in the numismatic community. So why do collectors pay such high premiums for these coins? The answer lies in demand and historical appeal. The Kennedy half-dollar already has a massive following, but the 1973 issue has added intrigue because of its unusual distribution and lower availability in circulation. Combine that with the emotional attachment people have to Kennedy's legacy, and you have a coin that is always in demand. Add in the potential for pristine condition or rare mint errors, and the value climbs even higher. Imagine finding a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar tucked away in a coin jar, a drawer, or an old mint set passed down through your family. To most people, it might look like an ordinary 50-cent piece, but to collectors, it could represent history, artistry, and serious financial value. This is why examining your coins carefully is so important, because treasures are often hidden in plain sight. And now, we arrive at the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1973 Kennedy half-dollars are worth just a small premium over face value, there exists one incredibly rare and valuable example that shocked collectors and dealers alike. Preserved in breathtaking condition, graded at the highest level, and with all the right qualities to make it stand out from the crowd, this extraordinary coin has been valued at an astonishing $284,000. Yes, that's right, $284,000 for a half-dollar that was originally worth just 50 cents. Think about the journey of this coin. From the mint presses in 1973 to the hands of a collector decades later, carrying with it history, memory, and unimaginable value. That is the magic of coin collecting. So the next time you come across a Kennedy half-dollar, especially one from 1973, don't overlook it. Take the time to check its mint mark, condition, and details, because you might be holding onto a piece of American history that could change your life. Today, we're going to explore a piece of American history that many people have seen, some may even have tucked away in a drawer, but very few truly understand: the Kennedy half-dollar from 1972. At first glance, it's just another 50-cent piece, but when we peel back the layers, this coin tells a story of history, design, production quirks, collector passion, and ultimately, shocking value. Stay with me until the end, because the final number I reveal is going to surprise you in a big way. Let's begin with the origin of the Kennedy half-dollar itself. The coin was first introduced in 1964, just a few short months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The decision to honor him on the half-dollar was swift and overwhelming. Americans wanted a way to pay tribute to their fallen leader. The design was created by Gilroy Roberts and Frank Gasparo, with Roberts' portrait of Kennedy on the obverse and Gasparo's rendering of the presidential seal on the reverse. From the moment it was released, the Kennedy half-dollar became one of the most beloved coins in U.S. history. People hoarded them, cherished them, and saved them as keepsakes. By 1972, the Kennedy half-dollar had been in production for 8 years. But this particular year stands out for several reasons. For one, 1972 was a year when the U.S. Mint was producing coins in massive quantities, yet with some surprising challenges. Strikes were not always strong, and quality control issues led to coins with weak details, unusual varieties, and even minting errors that today make collectors' hearts race. Millions of Kennedy half-dollars dated 1972 were made at the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint for proof coins. But despite the large production numbers, finding high-quality examples, especially those preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, is not as easy as you might think. Let's take a moment to appreciate the design. On the obverse, we see the timeless, dignified profile of John F. Kennedy, his gaze steady and strong, a reminder of leadership and inspiration. The word liberty arcs across the top, while I in God we trust is split to the left and right of his neck. The date 1972 sits at the bottom, anchoring the design. On the reverse, we see the majestic eagle from the presidential seal, wings spread wide, holding the olive branch of peace and the arrows of strength, encircled by 50 stars. Above it are the words United States of America and below half-dollar. It is a bold, patriotic image that has endured for decades. Now here's where things get interesting. Collectors know that not all 1972 Kennedy half-dollars are created equal. Some are common and worth only face value. But others, those with superb condition, rare proof finishes, or unusual errors, can be worth a fortune. Take, for example, coins graded at the very highest levels. A 1972 Kennedy half-dollar with flawless surfaces, full strikes, and blazing luster can command astonishing prices when certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. Even tiny differences in grade can mean hundreds or thousands of dollars. Then there are proof issues from San Francisco. Proof coins are struck with specially prepared dies and polished planchets, creating sharp, mirror-like fields and frosted devices. Collectors especially treasure the deep cameo proofs, where Kennedy's profile stands out dramatically against a mirrored background. A 1972 proof in perfect deep cameo condition is a sight to behold and a prize to own, but perhaps the most exciting aspect of the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar is the world of mint errors and varieties. This year is notorious for certain striking issues. Some coins show doubling in the lettering or date, others may be struck off-center, while some were even struck on the wrong planchets entirely. A wrong planchet error means a Kennedy half-dollar was accidentally struck on a blank meant for a different denomination, like a quarter. These errors are spectacular and extremely rare, instantly boosting the coin's value by thousands of dollars. Imagine for a moment someone spending such a coin in 1972 without realizing what they had in their pocket. Today, that same coin could sell for the price of a brand new car, or even more. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the idea that treasures hide in plain sight. What makes this year particularly appealing is that collectors are always hungry for high-quality early 1970s Kennedy half-dollars. Demand for the series never fades. From casual collectors who want a nice example to complete their albums, to advanced numismatists who chase the rarest varieties, there's always interest. And as demand continues to grow, the value of the rarest pieces rises higher and higher. Now, let's build up to the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1972 Kennedy half-dollars are worth little more than their 50-cent face value, there are exceptions so rare and so extraordinary that they stand apart from the rest. These are the coins that have been preserved in flawless condition, or that exhibit dramatic and highly desirable minting errors. When these coins cross the auction block, the results can be jaw-dropping, and one particular 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, combining rarity, pristine condition, and collector demand, has been valued at an incredible $232,000. Yes, you heard that right, $232,000 for a single half-dollar struck in 1972. Think about it. A coin worth 50 cents in your hand could, under the right circumstances, be worth more than most people's annual salary or even the cost of a house. That is why collectors search, that is why they preserve, and that is why every Kennedy half-dollar deserves a closer look. So the next time you find yourself holding a Kennedy half-dollar dated 1972, don't dismiss it as just loose change. Look carefully, check the details, examine the surfaces, and if you think you have something special, consider getting it graded. Who knows, you might just have a small fortune in your pocket without even realizing it. Today, we're diving into a coin that many of you might have seen countless times, a coin that often gets overlooked as ordinary, yet holds secrets that can make collectors' hearts skip a beat, the Kennedy half-dollar from the year 1971. At first glance, you might be thinking, it's just another 50-cent piece. I've seen them, I've even spent them. But here's the truth, what looks ordinary in your hand might actually be extraordinary when we peel back the layers of history, rarity, and collector demand. By the end of this video, you'll see why one of these coins shocked the numismatic world when it sold for a life-changing price. So grab a seat, stay with me, and let's go on this journey together. To truly appreciate the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, we need to rewind to its beginnings. The Kennedy half-dollar was first minted in 1964, less than a year after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Americans wanted a way to honor their fallen leader, and within months, the U.S. Mint replaced the Franklin half-dollar with Kennedy's portrait. The public response was overwhelming, so much so that millions of people hoarded these coins, not just as money but as keepsakes, symbols of memory, and tokens of respect. By 1971, the Kennedy half-dollar had already become an iconic part of U.S. coinage. But 1971 was a turning point, a year unlike any before it. Why? Because it marked the very first year that Kennedy half-dollars were minted without any silver content for circulation. From 1965 through 1970, half-dollars still contained 40% silver. But in 1971, the U.S. Mint transitioned entirely to a copper-nickel-clad composition for the coin struck for circulation. That change alone makes the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar a fascinating piece of history. It represents the shift from silver to modern coinage in the United States. Now, let's talk design. On the obverse, the profile of President John F. Kennedy faces left, designed by Gilroy Roberts. His portrait is sharp, dignified, and instantly recognizable, framed by the word liberty across the top and the motto "In God We Trust" divided on either side of his neck. The date, 1971, rests at the bottom. On the reverse, we see Frank Gasparo's majestic presidential seal, a heraldic eagle, wings spread wide, olive branch of peace in one talon, arrows of strength in the other, surrounded by 50 stars and the words United States of America and half-dollar. This combination of obverse and reverse remains one of the most powerful and patriotic designs in U.S. coinage, but while the design was the same as in prior years, the shift in composition in 1971 had consequences. The new clad half-dollars often showed weaker strikes, less brilliance, and softer details compared to the earlier silver issues. Mintages were high, hundreds of millions were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof versions for collectors. On paper, that might sound like the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is common, and yes, most examples are worth only face value. But here's where things start to get very interesting. Collectors quickly discovered that 1971 Kennedy half-dollars are filled with nuances, varieties, and even dramatic mint errors. For example, some coins were struck with double dies, where the lettering or date shows distinct doubling under magnification. Others were struck off-center, with the design shifted so dramatically that part of the coin is blank. And then there are wrong planchet errors, where a Kennedy half-dollar was accidentally struck on a blank intended for a quarter, a nickel, or even a foreign coin. These errors are so rare and unusual that they can transform an ordinary 50-cent piece into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Another fascinating aspect is condition rarity. Most 1971 half-dollars circulated heavily. They got scratched, worn down, tossed in change jars, or banged around in banks' coin bags. Finding a pristine example today, with full luster, razor-sharp details, and absolutely no flaws, is an incredible challenge. Collectors pay premium prices for coins graded in the highest mint state levels, sometimes hundreds or thousands of dollars just for condition alone. now let's talk about proofs. The 1971 proof half-dollars struck at the San Francisco Mint are special. They were made using polished dies and specially prepared blanks, creating mirror-like fields and frosted designs. Deep cameo examples, where Kennedy's portrait looks frosted against a black mirror field, are highly desirable. A flawless proof, especially one certified at the highest grade, can command shocking amounts of money at auction. All of this builds to the heart of the story. While millions of 1971 Kennedy half-dollars exist, only a tiny fraction stand out as rare gems. And when one of these coins appears at auction, the results can be jaw-dropping. Imagine walking past a pile of half-dollars, dismissing them as ordinary change, while one of them could pay for an entire house. The truth is, in the world of coin collecting, rarity and demand always win. The Kennedy series has a loyal following, and coins from this transitional year, especially those with errors, exceptional quality, or unique characteristics, are magnets for collectors with deep pockets. And when collectors compete, prices skyrocket. So now comes the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1971 Kennedy half-dollars are worth 50 cents, there exists an extraordinary example that stunned everyone with its incredible value. This single coin, preserved in pristine condition and desired by collectors across the country, sold for the breathtaking price of $245,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $245,000 for a single Kennedy half-dollar struck in 1971. Think about that for a moment. A coin that started its life as pocket change, a coin many people never even stopped to look at, could be worth more than most people's annual income, more than a luxury car, even more than some homes. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's why we search, why we study, and why we treasure these small pieces of history. So the next time you find a Kennedy half-dollar dated 1971, don't toss it aside. Look closely. Inspect the details. Because you never know, you just might be holding something truly extraordinary in your hands. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the fascinating story of the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. If you enjoyed this journey, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss another story about coins that could change your life. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and may your next find be your greatest treasure.